the other one. Just get it in there. It's great work, mate. Great work. Right, everyone, this is Jim. Say hello, Jim. Hello. This is Jim's garage. And what we're going to do with Jim's garage somehow is we're going to turn it into a nice den type environment for his two lads. And by popular demand, I was told that I need to do a time lapse of us doing it. I mean, the materials haven't arrived yet, so nothing's happening for a bit. We're just trying to get these hooks off. Looks like Jim's already just broken my spanner there. So, yeah.
Hi.
It's not happening, is it? Just try and take the top one off before you do both of them.
What?
There's two of them there, you just take the top one first. Don't do them both.
I've got it all, Woodsy.
Anyway, so yeah, I'll stick it in the corner and we'll time lapse it when the stuff gets here. We'll see what disaster we can make of this. Yeah, we've been going 1 minute, Jim's injured. This bodes well, doesn't it? Go on, Jimmy. Whey, look at that. Oh, we're still going to have the bolts sticking up.
Oh yeah.
So we've got to come off with an angle grinder.
You got an angle grinder?
No. Hi everyone, so there's a lot of time lapse in this video, so I thought I'd try something else. I thought I'd put in a little bit of voiceover, perhaps explain what's going on. I don't know, this might be awful, might be good, but because there's so much time lapse, I didn't just want to just play music for 15 minutes or whatever it is. So I thought I'd record this voiceover. So here we go then, this is the start of the garage conversion, and you can see straight away I realised I didn't bring my sawhorses, which I had intended to. So I grabbed a bit of junk wood that Jim had lying around and I've built a little sawhorse. That was all that was. Finally the materials did turn up. It took a while. They were supposed to be there on the Monday, then they were supposed to be there Tuesday morning. Eventually they turned up about 2:30. So this is the nice chap from Travis Perkins. He didn't want to come down the back lane here, but Jim managed to persuade him that he's going to. Otherwise we'd have had to cart all that stuff through the house, which would have been rubbish. So he managed to drop that down. It wasn't even that difficult. So now I've enlisted the help of the lads. So that's Jim's boys. And now Jim's turned up as well. And we are just unloading the timbers and the OSB board there. Just the big flat bits of board. I think I perhaps over-ordered on the timber, but that doesn't become apparent until later on. Come back to that. So here we are, we're just unloading. Pretty simple stuff. And as soon as we've unloaded, I then start thinking about, right, how are we actually going to do this framing? So you see me in the background there, wondering some things. Trying to figure it out. At this point I still haven't figured out exactly how it's going to go, but I was going to work on a plan of a standard sort of framing for a stud wall, which is what they call 400 on centre. So each vertical, the centre of each vertical timber is 400mm apart. That was what I used for my calculations. That's why there's that big pile of wood there. It very quickly became apparent that that's not going to be the best thing for this, because you can see those vertical lines in the concrete wall there. So we kind of realised that we're going to have to sort of match up to those vertical lines. There was also the supports for the ceiling, which you can just about make out in that shot there, the steel on top of the concrete. So the idea was that we had to get the framing up and mould it around the steel. We'll see how that goes in a minute. You can see Buddy the dog wandering in and out. One of Jim's boys is already off there. he's gotten a bit bored already because he said, "Is there any nails I can bang in?" And I said, "No, we're using screws." So he got a bit like, and they all wanted to use the power tools, and Jim wouldn't let them, which I think is probably fair. So that was me just seeing if I could drill through the steel, which I managed to do one, and it blunted my drill bit, so I couldn't get through the second one. So I abandoned that idea. Jim's been, happily screwing the supports, the uprights in, and then I said, "You did do them on the marks, didn't you?" And he went, "Oh, no, I didn't, sorry." So I had to unscrew them all and move them back to where they should be, which was did I do them 600 apart? Anyway. And then I put it up there, look, and I start to think, now how am I going to get this large panel up there? So I could have done it. I could have just chopped out, look, I'm talking about it now, chop out the bit at the top of each one, which is what I'm doing. But Jim suggested, well, why don't you just do a panel for each concrete panel? And I thought, yeah, that's a much better idea. So actually, Jim came up with the idea for this. Now, you just saw me cut out a little corner. That's so you can get it in where the steels are. So that's the first one in now. Now, it didn't seem to take very long on this time lapse, but that took a while. And a lot of head scratching and chatting and thinking, just to think about how we're going to get it in place. Now what we're trying to do is figure out how to attach it to the concrete. So I've got these concrete screws that go in concrete, not screws made of concrete. And I'm going to figure out how to do that. I've done the second panel there, just got to cut out the corner. There you go. So that one slots in place. So I've got two up now, you see. So once you start to solve the problems, then things start to move a little bit quicker. Jim decided he was going to leave me to it, which I was fine with, because he had the boys and he had work to do, blah blah blah. It was all part of the deal, because I was going to come and do it. So bless him, he did feel guilty about leaving me doing it, but it's all part of the process. It's all part of the fun. So there's another panel done, pretty much. I had 100mm screws, a bit long really, 70 would have been fine, but didn't make much difference. Just remembered you've got to put in these cross pieces, a bit of reinforcement, and they're called noggins, and I'm sure you're supposed to do them at a set height, but whatever, I just screwed them in. That stops the thing, wiggling from side to side and stuff like that. So gone back, put in some noggins. There we are. And at some point, I'm kind of at this stage, I'm sort of avoiding the problem of how do I get these two attached to the concrete. By, doing stuff that needs doing, but sort of in the back of my mind at this stage was always, how am I going to get these attached to the concrete? Because I didn't really want to have to drill into concrete every time, because it was difficult and noisy. Another conflab with Jim about how we might do this. He's been out and bought, because there's a lot of sort of gaps that he wanted to fill. So Jim's now filling gaps with his silicone gap filler or whatever he bought. Up to him, wasn't it? So I'm still pondering. Trying to make sure it fits in nice and snug. And now this is me drilling into the concrete. So drill through the wood, drill into the concrete. Abandoned the battery drill, got the mains drill out, and it just wasn't going in. And then I thought that was indicative of the strength of, I've given up, strength of the concrete. I thought it was all going to be like that. I later found out it wasn't all like that, and I perhaps could have drilled into it, but the first place I drilled, it was rock solid. Sometimes you have these bits of flint or stone embedded in the concrete and you just can't get through it. But I wasn't to know that, so I'm still trying to drill into it. And at some point, I come up with an alternative plan. Morning, we're on day 2 now. It's day 1, well it's a half a day. Got all these in, so that's all that framework doing. Still got plenty of materials, so now we're going to do this wall, and we'll just crack on with that. Good day today, hopefully get all the framework done. We're having trouble sourcing the insulation though, so we'll see what happens. I might have to come back or something. Anyway, let's get you on the old time lapse. So yeah, so as I was saying, this is day 2 now obviously, but what I found is that concrete screws could go between the concrete panels, which meant there was always a gap there, and they would bite in there really nicely. So that was the solution that I came up with, to actually line up the verticals with the gaps between the concrete panels, screw through the wood into those gaps, and those concrete screws I was using really did bite in there nicely. So that was sort of the main problems kind of solved, I guess, in that I now knew how big to make each sort of panel of framing. I knew how to fix it. The only problems I had now is squeezing it up beside that the rolly door, which is what I thought I'd tackle first thing in the morning on day 2. This is me doing that now. Actually putting the things together goes a lot smoother. I still make mistakes, you know, measure twice, cut once, they say. Yeah, I have to be reminded of that a couple of times. And up in those corners there's all sorts of other extra bolts and bits of reinforcement, so I had to cut pieces out of the wood to make it fit. Also the materials were in the way, which was a bit of a pain, but yeah. I just remembered actually that the reason that you didn't see me figuring out how to do the concrete bolts is because the battery on the GoPro ran out and I didn't realise. So a few hours of day 1 are missed. But this is me trying to get it in position. And it's just easier if I take the top off. In fact, those panels by the door there, they don't have a top piece because I just couldn't get it in there, basically, and that's got to come out as well. So you see that's gone in now, and now it's a case of putting that bottom piece in the right. I had 2 marks on the wood and I attached it to the wrong marks. I had to move it over so it's actually straight. That, you might have just seen, that was the drill coming in. So I drill through the wood into the gap in the concrete just to drill it out a little bit, and then those concrete screws went in so quick you probably didn't even notice. Put in the last noggin, obviously forgot that, and that's done, and on to the next one. Everything going a lot smoother now. Jim was actually at work. Well, he was working from home, but so you're not going to see Jim in this one so much. He did pop in and go, "Do you want to drink a cup of tea?" Having to move all the electrical bits as well. I did say to Jim he probably wants to get a proper electrician done once we've finished all boarding it out. Just come in and redo it, get some nice lights put in, make it look a bit nice. Because you know, you spent a lot of money on it, on materials. Didn't spend any money on me because my labour comes free for friends and family. Because it's just something I like doing. Another great guy, really nice guy, as you can tell. Yeah, so that's Jim. So just proceeding now pretty smoothly. I know what I've got to do. I've got to cut the little gaps out in the top corner, slide it up. Somehow got to get that plug socket to come. I can't get it in because the wood's in the way. Look, all my materials are in the way. There you go. And now that electrical socket just hangs down in front, so that when I get the OSB on, the panels on, I can just reattach it. Putting a little noggin in between each frame, just because it makes it a bit stronger. Not going to move around at all. I mean, those concrete screws were wedged in really tight anyway, but just a little bit of reinforcement. Little breather, little think there. Have a little think and a breather. Something you do. Anyway, we'll proceed. I think I'm just going to shut up now and just let you watch, or skip to the next bit. It's up to you. Right, it's 11:05, which means it's 11Z's time. I'm going to have a cup of tea. We've managed to secure the insulation, so we're all systems go. The battery's about to die on the camera, but there we are. That wall's done. Not bad for 2.5 hours. So just got to do that wall, and then the ceiling, insulate the lot, and then we're sorted. Right, 11Z's. So doing the final wall now, it's going really well. I'm thinking, oh, this is really quick. This wall proved to throw up some new problems, like how do I actually do it? There's a window, there's the electrical fuse box coming in. You see the black cable coming in from the bottom. That white box on the wall is the alarm system for the garage, which Jim doesn't use because it kept going off. He said it kept going off all the time, so I just ripped it apart. So, but it needs to come off. At some point I've got to deal with that. And it's just kind of all these little new problems, but essentially it's the same technique. So make the frame, cut the bits out that you need to cut out to make it fit around the bolts, and just sort of make it fit. But yeah. Oh, and coming up pretty soon, in the next minute or so, we've got some proper angle grinding going on. So I'm going to shut up and let you watch that. So yeah, so this wall's proving a bit fiddly, and I'm a bit scared of this big electrical cable coming in the wall, and it's just feeding in one point, going through a very simple old fuse box that I couldn't get off the wall, and then going to all the light switches and all the sockets. So I'm sure, well, I'm not sure, but I think it's probably a bit of a, not a bodge job, but it's probably not up to certain standards. And my advice to Jim is to actually get it done properly. But what I've got to do then is I've got to be able to get the framing in amongst all the wires. So it's just a bit of a threading it through type job. So I had to sort of, it took about 4 attempts to get this in. Just building the basic frame though. It's not difficult. Measuring my noggins, cutting those, making sure they're going in the right place, screwing them in. 2 screws on one side, 1 screw on the other. And 2 screws to stop it spinning. But on the other side, just 1 is good enough. And then first sort of test fit there. Look. So what have I got to take out of this? So I've got to unscrew that corner, so then I can get the wire to go through, and you see how it's behind the frame at the bottom, but of course you want your plug sockets there to be in front of the frame. Got to cut a hot bit out there because there's a whole mess of bolts and stuff that's got to be allowed for. Oh, that was a bit of live wire that I'd put some masking tape around and then realised I had some electrical tape in my toolbox. That's where I cut the alarm off. So I've realised I made another mistake, so I've got to take it off again, chop that corner out. Well, not a mistake, but you know, I needed to cut out pieces to get it around all the bits of steel work. Put it back in place. Is it going to work this time? Oh, have a little stop, look at the phone. Another little look at the phone. And now I'm actually happy. I'm actually fixing it. So drilling into the concrete, through the wood, into the concrete, moving the wood out of the way, drilling through. It goes right through to the outside world, which I guess really we should come back and fill those gaps. Otherwise you're going to get little creatures coming in. But it's going on. Well, it will be going on. There you go. That's the concrete screws going in nicely. So I've just got one panel to go. And I was going to do it in two sections because I've got the window there, so I was going to do under the window and then next to the window. But I thought, you know what? It actually lines up quite nicely, so I'm just going to go ahead and measure up and do the whole thing in one go. Right, so 2:30. The framing out is done. Obviously I haven't started the ceiling yet, but the framing is done. I'm getting tired. Not used to our craft all day. I do 2 or 3 hours and then stop. So we've obviously secured the insulation, so it's a case of stuffing that in the gaps now. And then boarding up, and that'll be the walls done, and then we've got to work out the ceiling. I have got an idea about what I'm going to do for the ceiling. Anyway, let's crack on, shall we? Yeah, and as I said, it really is just a case of stuffing that rock wool, as it's called, into the gaps. That rock wool is for obviously heat insulation, but it also does sound insulation. I don't really see how it's different from normal rock wool, but it's the stuff that fit. It's quite expensive. That's £55 a bag, and you see, one bag don't do that much. What does it cover? About 2.8 meters squared per bag. But you've got to do it right, and if you don't, it'll be freezing in the winter and nobody will want to use it, and so then it's just a waste of money because it's just sat there empty. So the only problem I had with the rock wool was how to cut it. I started trying to use my little standing knife and sort of go hack, 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 slice, 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 but it just ripped and tore. So I thought I'd try a carving knife out of Jim's kitchen, and you could really slice it almost like cake, you know, fluffy cake. little conflab Jim about the electrics. And at this point, as I got into the corner, I could see, so I wasn't wearing a respirator, you know, dust mask, but just in the corner where the light was coming through the window there, I could see what was floating around in the air, and it was glinty, shiny little bits of rock wool, basically. So I did think I'd best put my little face mask on there to just protect my lungs from any badness. But apart from that, it goes in very easily. You just cut it to shape, shove it in, and then any little gaps, you just shove in all your little offcuts. Sitting down on the job, look, there's a little gap there, shove a bit in, lovely. Make sure it's all nice and fluffy, and in it goes. A little text, always texting people, bloody WhatsApp. But yeah, so that's taken me all the way up towards the end of day 2, I think. Anyway, I'll leave you to it. So, end of day 2. The old sound and warmth and heat insulation's done. Leaving that bit because of the electrics. Don't know what to do about that. Get a man in, sort the electrics out. Got a gap there, got a gap there. Here's Jiminy.
Hi.
His hair grabbed and leg kicked his shoe off.
Too powerful, you don't know the power.
Power. And we got to do the ceiling and insulate the ceiling. That's going to be expensive, but luckily Jim's got loads of money, loads of it, just lying around. And yeah, so tomorrow we'll get the boards up and start thinking about the ceiling. Then I might have to go home, come back another day. Right, day 3. Jim's going to get a last bit of insulation for that bit, and I'm going to do the walls. I'm going to come back another time to do the ceiling. So we'll get you on time lapse and we'll start putting the boards up. So, with the insulation all done, the rock walls all in place, it's a case of, on day 3, getting the OSB panels on. They're quite big, and they're quite heavy, and they're quite difficult to move around on your own. But with a bit of effort, you can do it. And just making sure I'm just getting it screwed into the wood. Sometimes I was missing, but it doesn't really matter. Just take the screw out, put it back in again. So I was missing the wood behind it. But there you go. First one goes on easy. Now the problem is when you've got to start cutting it to size. So you've got to make your mark, make some more marks, join the line up, and you know, if I had a proper track saw, I could do a dead straight line, but I just free-handed it, and it's pretty easy. The circular saw, that DeWalt circular saw, will, because of the blade, you know, if you just push it along, it will do a pretty straight line. Just run your thumb with it. Pretty easy, really. And again, these ones go on quite easily. The difficulty is when you're getting it up to the top, and you've got to get it in amongst all those steels. And you know, I could have spent a long time figuring out precisely where to go. Oh, Jim's turned up with some more rock wool. Well done, Jim. That's the one bag I needed just to finish off the walls. And another another conflab about something. He's going off to the office. He's actually in the office on a Friday. What a crazy fool. Oh no, it was a Thursday, sorry. Yeah, you don't go in the office on a Friday. Who would want to do that? The reason I'm not in an office is because I've got the summer off. Because my main job is a teacher. Not of woodwork though. Which is why I keep making mistakes and I don't know what I'm doing. There you go, so I've just cut that off. So now that's the right height to go in that gap, but now I've got to figure out where to cut the holes, the sort of slots, so that it goes around those steels. Nothing but problems. So figure that out, draw my little gaps, sharpen my pencil because I think I broke it, and just chop it out. Now chopping it out with the circular saw isn't great, but it's quick. You need to take a bit off the corner. Okay, so just, there we go, and what a genius, it's in there. Oh, you can see the door just moved then. That's because the panel is right up against the mechanism for the door, and I wanted to make sure it still moved, so I just moved the door a little bit, and it was absolutely fine. These little considerations. Anyway, so just continues on like this now, putting the side panels up until I've had enough and I decided I need to go home. Because, like I said before, I'm tired. Sleeping in a strange bed is not good for you. Anyway, I'll shut up and I'll let Andrew get on with it, and he'll have the last word. And maybe I'll do another video like this for the final part, which will be when I go back and do the rest of it and the ceiling and everything else with my batteries all recharged on the GoPro and in me. So yeah, I'm sure any normal person would have skipped huge chunks of this video. Not expecting you all to have sat through and watched it and listened to me blather on. Why not let me know in the comments if you prefer it with me just shutting up, or with this new kind of commentary, I suppose. If it's like anything, I'm sure it'll be like half people say, yeah, it's great, and half people say, no, it's rubbish. So I'll just do it when I feel like it. Anyway, look at that blue sky. It was a lovely day. Great day to be stuck inside. Oh, that's me talking to the neighbour. There he is, look. Ooh. He's gone again. Cracking on. Yeah. Right, I'm going to stop talking and let this video play out by itself. If you have been watching, I thank you. Right, it's about 10:30 now. As you can see, done all of that wall, part of that wall, part of that wall, and I've run out of screws and I've run out of energy because I'm an old man. So I'm going to go home and I'm going to come back another day and complete this project. So all we've got to do, the rest of the walls and then the ceiling, but the ceiling is going to be a big pain in the arse job, so I don't fancy tackling that now. Everything always takes a little bit longer than you think, doesn't it? Anyway, good effort. Well done, me.